Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Cricket Daily. It's Wednesday, the 20th of October. I'm Andrew Menczel, co-host of the Cricket Unfiltered podcast. I'm joined by Bharat Sundaresan from Cricbuzz. Bharat, how are you?
I'm good, Menners. It's Wednesday, so it's my time. It's my day on Cricket Daily.
That's right, and it's Women's Big Bash League Day with a double header taking place in Australia. So I'm excited with that looming on the horizon. But look, lots of news since the last show. There have been wins to Scotland and Bangladesh in the T20 World Cup overnight. That means Scotland have 2 wins now, and Bangladesh have 1 win. So Scotland looking pretty good to make it through to the next stage. In the WBBL yesterday, the Hurricanes beat the Stars on the back of a Rachel Priest century, the first ever centurion by Hobart Hurricanes in the Women's Big Bash. So excellent work by Priest. And in the second game, the Brisbane Heat avenged their super over defeat from Sunday afternoon by defeating the Scorchers in a pretty convincing fashion. So 2 good games in the WBBL yesterday. But Barrett, I wanted to start by talking to you about the IPL. Now, you and I haven't chatted since MS Dhoni's CSK lifted the title for the 4th time last Friday. And I guess, what is your immediate sort of reaction to Dhoni, winning the title one more time?
It was coming. That's just how Dhoni's life has been, Menners. I could not picture him going out, the way Chennai Super Kings played last year. The only time they never made it to the playoffs. There was no way he was going out that way. And you knew there was that 1 win still left for him. And having said that, I am confident he's going to play another season. I don't see him, walking away when the IPL's away from home. I'm sure he'll have that final home game at the Chepauk. And now it looks like it'll be the final because Chennai have won. So if things stay as normal as they can, Chennai should host the next IPL final in 7 or 8 months' time. The team that they've had, there's so much experience in there in terms of knowing to win titles, right? But the one big thing for me from this Chennai Super Kings win, though, Menners, was they have been, accused in the past of having a daddy's army and just having a team full of guys who on the wrong side of their 30s and with that sole focus on just winning the title, which is great. But this time they've not only done that, but they've also given India a couple of high profile talents that the Indian national team can tap into. Ruturaj Gaikwad and some others have really taken their game to the next level, like a Deepak Chahar and Shardul Thakur have improved greatly. And they've also done a huge favor to Australia by turning Josh Hazelwood into a proper T20 bowler, if you ask me.
So you think MS Dhoni will go around next year in the IPL one more time?
I'm very confident that he will. Like, the only question is that will mean Chennai having to use one of their few retention cards that they will get, considering it's going to be a big auction and there are 2 new teams here as well. But already I read a comment somewhere from a CSK official saying the first person we'll retain is MS Dhoni. Because I think I've said this before as well. In the IPL, it goes beyond what a player brings to the field as well. And Dhoni in Chennai is so interlinked. And him being a mentor with the Indian team is great for him because that'll mean that he stays in touch with the game. And knowing him, I know he's going to spend most of that time just bowling in the nets. He loves bowling in the nets, and just being around cricket will help. And considering the next IPL is not 12 months away, but just 6 to 7 months away, tells me that he will, if not the whole tournament, he will definitely be part of the tournament at the start and have that final game at Chepauk. He's not someone who likes farewells, but knowing N. Srinivasan and how the Chennai Super Kings outfit work, I'm sure they're not letting him get away with it. And you could see in the way he came back and told Harsha Bhogle that he's not left any legacy behind. He's not leaving. So I think that was a crucial little hint that he dropped towards the end.
Yeah, I guess as well, that performance was against Delhi where he won the game in the last couple of overs, showed he's still got that little bit of something that can win a game when it gets down to the crunch moment. I think, though, if I'm MS Dhoni, I've won the IPL, it is the perfect time to retire right now, go out on top. They say you always want to leave people wanting more. And I think Dhoni is in the perfect position to do that now. Leave everybody wanting just a little bit more and walk away on top. Well, you mentioned Josh Hazelwood. He spoke to the media after the tournament and said that CSK kind of focused on pace bowling mainly to win the tournament. Obviously, they had some overs of spin, but he made the point that it was most innings 13, 14 overs of pace. Do you think that's something that was unique to CSK, and do you think we'll see it translate into the World Cup?
Yes, but when you talk about 14 overs of pace with Chennai Super Kings, when as you're talking, Josh Hazelwood was probably the only out and out fast bowler. Shardul Thakur, Deepak Chahar, Dwayne Bravo. I mean, especially in T20 cricket, they focus so much more on cutters and taking the pace off the ball rather than getting it through. So that's why I thought Josh Hazelwood played such a big role for MS Dhoni, and he's a captain who likes having that one new ball bowler who can strike with the new ball. And once Sam Curran was ruled out, Sam Curran played a different role. I mean, he's no comparison to Josh Hazelwood, the bowler, but he could do both. But most importantly, he could get wickets with the new ball. I think once Josh Hazelwood established himself in that role, he played a couple of games, if you remember, was it last year or during the India leg? I don't remember, where he did well. And you could see in MS Dhoni's eyes that he had identified him as that bowler who he's going to use. If you go back in time, even when there were IPLs that they won in India, they had someone like a Doug Bollinger. But around Doug Bollinger, they would have the likes of Bravo and others who take the pace off. So I think that's, again, the beauty of MS Dhoni. He identifies what kind of attack he needs to go in with, but depending on the conditions, even if he does get criticized, even if it doesn't go with the norm. I think that's where Delhi faltered on that Sharjah pitch. They stuck with their genuine fast bowlers, Rabada and Nokia. And eventually, I think they got so kind of hooked onto that formula that they couldn't change for that crucial game against Calcutta. And I think if they had played an extra spinner and played Steve Smith as well, that's another thing we need to debate about. They could well have had a chance to, get past Kolkata and get into the final.
Well, you mentioned Delhi there. I thought they really disappointed in the finals. And I've made the comparison that when Ricky Ponting was Test captain, when the pressure was on, for some reason, he often went the conservative route. And I felt that Delhi in the finals weren't adventurous enough, especially with the bat. I don't think they really took the game on. And in the second game, the knockout game, they looked almost like a deer in the headlights. They really didn't take on KKR. And I don't know if it's a reflection on Ponting's coaching or just the team, but for me, Delhi were very disappointing in the finals.
They were, and like I just said, I thought they were just too stubborn to change. Yes, I mean, even in that little clip that we saw of Ricky Ponting after they lost to Chennai, where he talks about, you are the best team, you are the best players in the tournament. That's fine. It's true. I mean, no wonder they topped the table, in the league phases. But at the end of the day, if the teams who win finals, like I said, with Chennai or anyone, any tournament, anywhere, are teams who are ready to just, look at what they have in hand in terms of conditions and adapt to it. I think Delhi struggled to do that. Once the pitches became slow, they just stuck with, hoping that Ashwin just spins them to victory. It showed against Calcutta. Calcutta picked 3 spinners, and there were so many overs of spin, and Delhi just couldn't get a move on. Yes, they were a tad conservative because they didn't go after the spinners, but it is a youngish batting lineup, as you see, and that's where I thought a Steve Smith would have played a huge role. Even if he had made 35 and 33, he could have let everybody else bat around him. I think that's where they kind of lost the plot in many ways. And yeah, I mean, and then there's no point, talking about whether you're the best team or not if you can't adapt. Best teams always adapt, and Ricky Ponting and his team did not, and no wonder they ended up as a disappointment again. I mean, back-to-back seasons last year as well. At least they made the final. But look, they have everything going for them except that final push, and that'll only come if you are brave when it matters.
Yeah, I agree. And I thought KKR punched above their weight. I thought they excelled. They're a team that often goes up and down the IPL ladder, but that was a really good performance at the back end. And I think you made the point on a previous show that they were probably the form side, apart from Chennai, since the IPL resumed.
They were, and again, I think it had a lot to do with the pitches. If you go back and see when they won those two titles in 2012 and 2014, they played a lot on at the Eden Gardens, where the pitches were slow and there was turn, and they would have three, at times even four spinners playing for them. Shakib Al Hassan was played a big role then. He played a big role here, taking the new ball. And conditions just favored that style of Calcutta cricket. I mean, the way the KKR like to play, and I think, but the biggest uh, positive, or like the biggest news from that camp, was Venkatesh Iyer. Like, the way he's just come on the scene, and just the composure he seems to have to get dropped that early on in the final, and then the knock he played, he kept them alive. I mean, till the time he was there, you thought they really did have a chance to go all the way in the final as well. So I think he's been the biggest find for me, not in terms of just numbers, but just he's around 26, 27. So he's seen life. We know about his story now, working for Deloitte or getting the offer and whatnot. But I think he could be someone who could be fast tracked to the Indian side. You never know, very soon, before you know it. And I think, yeah, they did punch above their weight, but they understood and realized what was working for them. And then they stuck to it. And Sunil Narayan's form as well, I think, was a big positive. But eventually, like in my marriage, right? Menners, my wife is Bengali. She's from Calcutta. It takes a good few Tamilians to make Calcutta, or anything to do with Calcutta, better than it already is.
Yeah, I hope she's not listening right now.
No, she's at
Barrett,
work.
thank goodness. Otherwise, this recording could suddenly stop. All righty. Well, that was our little chat about the IPL. I think credit to them for getting it done, considering all the challenges, and look forward to it next year. Now, Barrett, I turned on SEN radio for world listeners. That's a radio station in Melbourne, and you were on the radio to Gerard Whateley yesterday morning, talking about your sort of top four teams for the World Cup, the four nations that you will think will make the semi-finals. So I thought I'd run through them with you. Do you want to? I mean, let's start with number four. You've picked Australia in the top four. I'm astounded at this. I'm not sure how you can pick them. They're a side lacking options. They don't have a decent spinner. They don't have lower order hitting. Their strengths, their top order batting, yet Warner and Finch are out of form. I'm just not sure how you can have them in the top four.
I knew it would irk you, Manners. For the first time, I'm picking Australia and you're not. But look, I'm basing it on the fact that nobody's really giving them a chance. And we've seen in the past, T20 World Cups can be built around, T20 champions can be built around two or three players. It's that kind of format. If they go on a run, and Glenn Maxwell's coming in to this tournament at the, and with Glenn Maxwell, it's about how he's feeling. It's all about feel with him. And he just seems to be bringing that confidence from the IPL, where he's not living up to anybody else's expectations but his own. Similarly with Mitchell Starc, what I saw of him in the Gold Coast, just training, helping the women's team out, and just him in the nets by himself bowling, and just his body language in that warm-up game against New Zealand as well. And then you have Mitchell Marsh striking the ball better than I've seen most any batter in my life strike the ball. He hit one ball here for six at the Karen Rolton Oval, which landed on the other side of Knott Terrace, and that's a long hit. And when you have three guys like that, and Aaron Finch and David Warner, there is history to it where they get into an ICC tournament not in great form, but then start performing. You just have to look back to the 2019 World Cup and put all that together, and Josh Hazelwood's form and all that, and the fact that nobody's really people have already written them off. Gives me that feeling that there's always that one surprise semi-finalist. And for me, this time it's going to be Australia.
Well, I hope you're right, because obviously I want to see Australia do well. But I mean, I see all the things you just said, but the fact is we just don't know how to win games when it comes to T20 cricket. Over the last few years, we've been in good positions in games and we've let them slip too often. So I hope it turns around in the tournament. I've got New Zealand as my fourth ranked team. I mean, they're not in your top four. I think New Zealand are a team that fly under the radar. They've got lots of good bits and pieces cricketers that I think will flourish on those wickets. I mean, you mentioned CSK. The Kiwis have a good mix. They've got some really fast bowlers, but then they've got the little slower ones to come in next. So what do you think about New Zealand's chances?
I just look at that squad, Menace, and you're right. I mean, they do have that right nice mix of cricketers. You look at that squad and look at the pitches that we've seen so far in the UAE, and I know they've been saying that there'll be a few fresher wickets for the World Cup than what we saw in the IPL. But even I just don't see them, beating in India or even a Pakistan. And I will come to Pakistan, of course. And if you don't do that, you cannot progress, because those are the two other big teams there. Afghanistan, of course, have also qualified, and they're already in that group. So I think that's my thing with New Zealand. I don't know whether the bowling, in my book, seems to have a sameness to it. You have Saudi. I do not think Saudi is a great T20 bowler. I really rate him very highly as a test bowler, but we've seen him in the past. In the death, he does struggle. He does not have a great record. I saw him last year when he captained New Zealand against India. There is a sameness to it. Willem Mitchell, Santer, and Ish Sodhi, it'll come down to those two in my book. And with Martin Guptill, when the pitch is when the ball's not coming on, he has struggled in Asia in the past. So those are some of the reasons why I just thought New Zealand might struggle. But it also has to do with who's in their group. And I really am backing Pakistan this time to progress. And India, again, have picked the right squad for the first time. I mean, India played T20 cricket in the 2016 World Cup the way England used to play 50-over World cricket until the 2015 World Cup. Now they've gone and made some brave picks in Surya Kumar Yadav and Ishan Kishan, who weren't playing for India even 12 months ago. And that's why I think India will get out of that group alongside Pakistan.
So you've got in your top four Australia, then Pakistan, then India. Obviously, India are a powerhouse, so there's no arguments there. But Pakistan, I'm interested in this one because you talk about surprise packets. They're the sort of team that can come in and they could go undefeated through the tournament, or they could lose every game. What are the qualities in the Pakistan team that you think will put them in the top four?
To start with, it's like a home World Cup for them, and I'm not just talking about them, Pakistan having played a lot of bilateral cricket there. There have been so many PSL editions that happened in the UAE. A lot of these guys who are in this squad literally grew up playing cricket in the UAE at that level. Not, I'm saying not at a very local level, but at PSL level or international level. And there are some guys like a Haider Ali, or there's experience for sure with Shoaib Malik and Mohammad Hafiz, the two guys who go nowhere. They've been part of every World Cup from the time I think I was born, been around forever. And
Definitely.
And you have Babar Azim and Mohammad Rizwan, who are like the most underrated opening partnership in T20 cricket right now, in international T20 cricket. And then you have, like I said, the likes of a Haider Ali, or a few names that we don't talk about too much because they don't feature in an IPL or a BBL. But a lot of them have made their name in the CPL, and there's a lot of hidden talent there. And I just think, and also more than anything, I always have compared Pakistan, the cricket team, to Italy, the football team. Whenever there is some issue happening behind the scenes, like seems to be the case with Pakistan a lot, they just seem to find a way to do well in ICC tournaments. I think back to the 2017 Champions Trophy when nobody gave them a chance. And another good thing for Pakistan, and I think to an extent for India as well, is that they're getting that India-Pakistan match out of the way very early on at the start. And then they can really get into the tournament, regardless of what happens in that match. So I think that's good for both teams, rather than having it later on where there's still pressure on qualification and all that. So I think that will also play into Pakistan's hands.
Yeah, I think Pakistan are dangerous. Yeah, it's a good pick. They're not far outside my top five. So I've got the West Indies as my third seed because I really like them. They're a team of T20 specialists, which I think gives them such a big advantage. So many of them are so proficient. But my concern is that it's just a little bit at the end of the cycle. If this World Cup had come a year ago or 2 years ago, they'd probably be my favorite. But they're just some of them are on the wrong side of, I was going to say 30, but some are on the wrong side of 40.
Yeah, and I think just speaking to people in the Caribbean, experts in the Caribbean, Manners, they seem to agree, not just with the fact that it's like the band is back together in some ways, right? Everybody's back. Bravo, Russell, Gale, Pollard, except Sammy and Sunil Narine, everyone else is back. But also there are some complaints about them not having picked a couple more younger talents from the CPL. Bringing back a Ravi Rampal, for example, is being debated. He bowled pretty well against Pakistan the other day. He's played a lot of county cricket, and he's been prolific in England for the last few years as well. My concern is their bowling more than their batting. I think even if each one of them has one good day in the tournament, they'll sail through to the semi-finals. But the bowling, just Hayden Walsh in there as a wicket-taking option. The rest, I'm not like so sure about. Like, I mean, their success in the past was based so much around Samuel Badri with the new ball, and Sunil Narayan in 2012, and even Suleiman Ben played a very crucial role, which doesn't get spoken about much in 2016. So I don't know whether they have that kind of bowling depth this time, which means that they will have to back their batters to do it. I had a question for one of them about who plays the Marlon Samuels role, the anchor, and Roston Chase has been nominated to do that. And if you look at his record, there was a 5-6 year period where he did not play any T20 cricket. So he's just come in 2 years ago, done well in the CPL. So there's a lot of pressure on someone who's never played at this level, at this format, to play that crucial a role. So those are things that worry me about West Indies, but you would still back them to get into the semi-finals, and then it's their game, really.
Yeah, well, they can't worry you that much because you've got them as your top seed. So Barrett's top four: West Indies, India, Pakistan, Australia. So we've gone through the rest of mine, but one team I'm surprised you've left out is England. I've got India as my top seed and England as the second seed, and I think England have shown that they have such depth with white ball cricket. They're so good in these ICC tournaments recently under Morgan. Although Morgan's out of form with the bat, he's an excellent skipper. I just have a feeling we'll see them do very well. I guess they're in foreign conditions, but still, I'm giving England a really good chance to making the semis.
No, I mean, it was a brave call on my part to leave England out. Maybe 2 months ago, I thought there was no questions about England. In fact, I had predicted an England-West Indies final like a few months back. But I don't know, just something tells me, just the vibe around this English team. It's an Ashes year. I know completely different teams. But just the focus seems to be a little all over the place with English cricket right now. Not Owen Morgan for sure. He doesn't have to worry about the Ashes, and nor do a lot of others in that team. But just something, yesterday Liam Livingston getting in finger injury, just the way things are going with English cricket. And again, with their bowling attack. I mean, look, they went into the finals of 2016 World T20 without really having the strongest bowling attack, but their batting was just of another level. But the ball beginning to keep a little low. You even speak to players in the practice nets. They talk about the ball keeping low, even if it's not stopping and turning. Then it brings into question how many of these English batters have played enough in these conditions, white ball cricket that is, to really win match after match after match. And West Indies, they start off against West Indies, which is again not a bad thing for them. Their record against West Indies in ICC tournaments is not the best. But then I think it'll come down to that Australia-England clash, where the way I picture it, Australia go past them. Nobody gives Australia a chance, but they pip England, which could well be the sign of how things will go in the Ashes. And then, and that'll be it for them. I don't know. Just a vibe around that team tells me that, I think the Morgan era might be coming to an end at this World Cup.
Well, it's a big call. I think that fatigue could play a factor. They've been playing so much cricket over the last 2 years, but a lot of these T20 blast matches are played on slow, low wickets in these tiny little county grounds. So I actually think they should handle the conditions okay. Whether they have a spinner good enough to match some of the other sides, I guess that's the question. But look, excellent top four, Barrett. I've got these written down, so when the semi-finals actually, settled, we can just see who was closer, me or you.
It'll be great if it turns out every World Cup I think about it. You make all these predictions. What if it's Bangladesh, New Zealand, Sri Lanka, and I don't know, England are in the semi-finals?
Scotland to the semis.
Scotland, George Munsey, is a player of the tournament. Why not? I'm all for it.
Exactly. All right. Last thing, Barrett. So I've got my Australian World Cup team settled. If I'm selecting the side, I've got Finch and Warner at the top, Mitch Marsh at 3, Glenn Maxwell at 4, Stoinis at 5, Josh Inglis at 6, Matt Wade at 7. You seem to think Steve Smith should go in there somewhere. Where should he go?
I would play Steve Smith. I wouldn't play both Inglis and Wade in my team. I think you don't need two keepers. You'd have to play two spinners. Like we've seen, Ashton Agar has to play the all-rounder role. And Zampa bowled, I mean, he was the best of the bowlers alongside Kane Richardson the other day. So my 11 would, to start off the tournament, would be Warner, Finch, Mitchell Marsh, Steve Smith, Glenn Maxwell, Josh Inglis, and then the 5 bowlers, Ashton Agar at 7, and you pick any three fast bowlers should be fine with Adam Zampa. And the reason I say that is I don't think you need 2 all-rounders. That kind of thins out the batting in my book a little, especially if you're 25 for 3, which can happen. And I don't think Steve Smith needs to bat in every game, but he is in there as an insurance. And like I said earlier with the IPL, Delhi really missed him in that preliminary final, or whatever it's called, qualifier or eliminator against Calcutta. And when it's 25 for 3, like he did the other day as well, that 35 of 33 is the kind of knock that can really make a big difference in a big game. Yeah, maybe your Maxwells and Stoinises might blast their way through in a couple of games here or there. But when it counts, you need someone like Steve Smith. So I would put him in there. I don't think you need Stoinis and Marsh playing together. Stoinis is a bit of a hit or miss in those conditions. Like he's brilliant in Australia and even in England or wherever the ball comes on. We saw him in that game again. Ponting, promoted him to number 3. And he really struggled, and he kind of killed the momentum in the Delhi innings. It's not just his fault, but it did happen. So that's my playing 11. I would back Steve Smith in there for sure, based completely on the conditions. Next year, T20 World Cup in Australia, you can leave him on. But for this tournament, especially because I'm backing them to go to the semi-finals, I want Steve Smith playing.
Yeah, I'll finish my 11 then. So I had Wade at 7. Then I've got Cummins, Stark, Hazelwood, and Swepson. I don't think Zampa and Agar are good enough. So I think they shouldn't. I just do not think they will do well. I think we don't have enough power. So I think Steve Smith just needs to sit out. We just need to go hell for leather out there. Steve Smith will go around and nudge it around, and we'll end up being 20 runs short of a winning total, and our bowlers won't be able to defend it. In my team, you've got the 5th bowler of Maxwell, Mitch Marsh, and Stoinis. They share those 4 overs. And you've got, the 3 quicks and a spinner. And I just think we've got to go hell for leather at it. Australia, I take your point about Stoinis. He's not a lock. But, Inglis has shown he's got something. Just take a gamble.
Yeah.
If we're going to win a tournament, take a gamble on someone no one's seen. The international world hasn't seen much of Swepson. He might be able to fly under the radar and bowl some good spells. And then I like Wade at 7 because he's a bit of a slogger. And I just think if Steve Waugh's not in the top, if Steve Waugh's certainly not in the top 3. If Steve Smith's not in the top 3, then I just don't think there's a spot for him.
I just think Steve Smith can be that floater. He definitely is not in the top 3 for me, but you can use him the way you want to. I think he contributes a lot on the field, so that's no issue with Steve Smith. He will pick off a couple of catches if he plays every game, like he did even the other day. So I just think you need that insurance for sure. Like I go back to Marlon Samuels, like the 2 times West Indies won T20 World Cup. Both times, it wasn't one of the big hitters who won them the final. It was Marlon Samuels both times on a pitch which was both pitches kind of were slow, ball wasn't coming on, and you needed someone like him to guide you through. Yes, Carlos Brathwaite hit those 4 sixes, helped, but I think that's the role Steve Smith could play. It's a bold call leaving out Ashton Agar and Adam Zampa, but you are one to make bold calls. Look, at the end of the day, it's between Swepson and Zampa. I guess they'd start with Zampa because of his experience, but if he doesn't work out a couple of games, Swepson definitely can come in. But I just think you need a proper spinner, and Ashton Agar plays such a big role because he can bowl in the power play as well, which I think is going to be a huge facet of this T20 World Cup. Spinners bowling in the power play. India is definitely going to use a Varun Chakravarti in the power play. I'm sure some of the other teams are as well, and Ashton Agar could be that crucial member in that Aussie setup.
Well, I hope you're right. I think Agar could go at 10, 15 and over the way he's bowling and the way that he performed. Yeah, I just think international batsmen have got his measure. All righty. Well, good stuff, Barrett. I think it's going to be an interesting tournament. Steve Smith, for me, really his spot in T20 cricket is Aaron Finch's. I think Finch, when he retires, for me, Smith would be a great opener. He's not a huge hitter, but he can hit over the top well enough to find the boundary. He can anchor innings. So just keep that in your mind. In the future, Smith to open for Australia in T20 cricket. All righty, Barrett. Thanks for going.
Sorry, I mean the way Travis Head is batting, I'm going to push for Travis Head and go Redbacks.
Well, you are living in Adelaide, so good plan there. I do like Travis Head. He's been on Cricket Unfiltered, I think 3 or 4 times, so I'm a big fan. All right, the last bit of news. Unfortunately, the Sri Lankan cricket community is mourning the death of its first ever Test captain. Bandula Wanapura passed away at a private hospital in Colombo, aged 68, on Monday. He led the side 4 times in Test cricket in 1982 and played in the 75 and 79 World Cup campaign. So rest in peace. And obviously, that's quite a bit of history that for his family to hold on to, that he was the first ever Test captain. Well, Barrett, thanks for joining me for this double-sized jumbo edition of Cricket Daily. Enjoy the rest of the week and we'll catch up soon.